Is that how I do that?
You can call the meeting to order and then you can stand.
Okay, I now call the meeting to order. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America, and to the
and to the
republic for which it stands, one
one
nation,
nation,
under God, indivisible,
indivisible, with
with
liberty
liberty
and
and justice for all.
Okay. Next, you would ask for the approval of the agenda. Can you see the agenda in board docs? To the left side of you.
thought earlier.
So next you have the approval of the agenda.
Okay. We now have the approval for the agenda.
And Mr. Victor, since you are the only other member, you will be the one who would need to make the motion, sir.
Move that we remove the minutes from the agenda.
Okay. And do you approve the agenda after the removal of the minutes?
Yes.
And Chloe, you would probably need to second since it's just the two of you all.
I second.
And then you would call for the vote.
Can we have a show of hands for approval of the vote? For yes?
Aye.
The amendment.
Aye. Okay.
Okay.
Aye.
And hold on. And it's unanimous with Angela being absent. Okay. Can you see your agenda?
I do not. I saw it earlier before I came on.
So the next is public comments, and you do have a public comments. It's for Mr. David Cook. So if you would give me a minute, I will give him a call.
Okay. All right.
Let's see.
Reach me via email at lchhhi@gmail.com. Thanks for calling and have a great day.
Mr. Cook, I'm calling you for public comments. This is my second time trying to reach you. Thank you. I didn't get an answer.
Okay. We'll move on to the approval of the December 6th, 2022 committee meeting.
We removed those from the agenda.
Okay.
So on to the next.
The school choice applications, Ladies Island Elementary Leader in Me Lighthouse School Choice option. Is there any discussion?
Ms. Cushion-Mary,
Yes, ma'am.
if you could pull up the slide presentation to page 13, I can give an overview if the board would like that.
Okay, hold on. Let me get to that.
And thank you, Mrs. Cushenberry, joining us this evening. We do have the acting principal, Jason Osborne. He has signed in. I do understand. Hi, Mr. Osborne. Good afternoon. Thank you for joining us. And for the second application, Madam Chair, Ms. Gordon, we will also have the principal from Coosa Elementary, Melissa Pender, will be available as well. There will be slide presentation for a summary of their applications. The principals are here for any open questions. And afterwards, then we will go into the next item on the agenda, Madam Chair. Thank you.
I
Thank
did use the number that you gave me. So I did.
Thank you, Dr. Stratus, and thank you, Chairwoman Gordon, for the opportunity to bring forward
I will try.
2 new school choice programs in Beaufort County. Going to start out with administrative regulation, IS 21E. The request to offer a new choice program within Beaufort County School District is submitted in December of the year prior to its implementation. All of those requests on their applications must be submitted in entirety before we can consider them. All requests are reviewed by a curriculum panel through the Instructional Services Department, and then they come forward to you at the Beaufort County School District Academic Committee before a final decision is made, and that goes back to our Chief Instructional Officer, Dr. Stratus. It is
Mrs. McKinsey, I just want to bring forward one item. As we noted in the administrative regulation, our agenda was rather full in December, and we were not able to bring it forward at that time. So I do want to bring that forward to our board members. Thank you, Mrs. McKinsey.
Thank you,
Appreciate
Dr. Stratus.
Yes, ma'am.
It is recommended that a survey be conducted to verify the need and the support of a new program in conjunction with any district initiatives. So we're looking at grants, community partnerships, those sorts of things. The overall budget, staffing, and the school's fiscal ability to sustain the proposed course of study is also considered in our approval process. So we'll start out with the choice program review for Ladies Island Elementary on page 14. And again, I'm going to go through this quickly, and then I'll turn it over to Mr. Osborne as their principal to answer any questions. Ladies Island Elementary School is putting forward a Leader in Me. They are currently operating under a 3-year grant from the State Department of Education. And this request that they put forward is really an extension of that, and it is making this a formal choice within their school as of August of 2023. Just to give you some background on what Leader in Me is. Leader in Me is a whole school transformation model, and it's a process developed in partnership with educators that empower students with leadership skills and life skills that they really need in order to thrive within the 21st century. Leader in Me builds highly effective practices and tools to teach leadership to every single student, creates a culture of student empowerment, and aligns systems to drive those results back for student achievement. The program is based on a theory of change known as see, do, get. So when you change the way you see things, it influences what you do and the results you get. This allows educators to see their role, student potential, and the purpose of the school culture in a whole new way. So we'll look at how this ties into the strategic goal, which is one of those tenements of the requirement. It fits into developing foundational skills and systems that engage all participants in positive learning, inclusive of the school community and the community it serves. And that's on our strategic plan on page 3. It is a school climate under 1.0. By the 2023-24 school year, the student levels of engagement in schools, according to the South Carolina School Report Card for Beaufort County, will increase to a minimum of 68%. So part of their purpose in putting this goal forward is to increase that student engagement within their school. An overview of extended cost and expected costs for this program. Remember that they are under a 3-year grant, so these costs will not come into place until the end of that 3-year grant window. There is an annual membership fee of $5,100. There is an implementation of coaching, so that is 2 days at $3,500 a day for a total of $7,000, which brings that total in the school, I know you know your math, but about to $12,100 to maintain that program annually. So would you like me to stop at this time, Chairwoman Gordon, and allow you to ask questions of Mr. Osborne, or would you like me to go through CUSA's application as well?
No, let's
Yes, ma'am.
ask questions for Mr. Osborne. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any questions for Mr. Osborne?
Yeah, what does it mean to bring student engagement up to, what was it, 68%? What can you define what student engagement is and why it's not 68%? And what does 68% mean?
Yes, sir. As part of the South Carolina School Report Card each year, students in the upper elementary grades are surveyed on their thoughts and their feelings about school and how well they are engaged in their studies and how well they're able to handle their work. Do they like school? Do they have an adult in the school that helps them, and other such things? And our school post-COVID is working to get our results into the 70s on the school report card. And that is just from a survey of the students that is mandated by the state.
What percentage are we at right now? Do you know that answer?
Do you have that? Yes, sir. We are at 7.2 out of 10, so 72%. So we've exceeded it, but I'd like it to be as high as possible. Ideally, we'd like 100% of our students to have that engagement. And I didn't have this 72% number back in September when we originally were working on the application. So that 68% goal is based on the previous school year. So we've actually exceeded this goal, but we'd like to go higher.
So
Yes.
the cost, I'm sorry, the cost is $12,000 annually for this?
Yes, sir. And I believe that the coaching days could possibly be optional depending on the school's need, how well we feel that we are implementing the program and any support that we need. Ms. Pender runs a very successful Leader in Me school, so she may be able to answer that part of your question about the coaching costs. But yes, sir, right now we're currently through the grant paying $12,100.
Okay, so
Okay,
have we started?
I see, excuse me, Victor, I see Ingrid's hand
sorry.
up. It's Ms. Boatwright's hand
My
up.
apologies.
Ms. Boatwright?
Oh, sorry. And I'm happy to wait for Mr. Nye to have his questions answered because I had some of the same questions and then I just needed a clarification. So why don't you get
Okay.
to me when he's done?
All right.
I guess my only, I mean, this is, I'm still trying to figure out how to jump onto a moving train here. So I don't know what I don't know about this committee yet. So pardon my ignorance and pardon my learning curve. But have we already implemented this Leader in Me program?
It is a pilot. Yes, sir. The staff must first learn the 7 habits of highly effective people. So we've had staff trained on what the 7 habits are, and we are establishing the groundwork to begin implementation in the next year fully.
Okay, so I guess my last question is we're supposed to pay $12,100 for a goal that you've already exceeded. without the funding at all. Obviously, we want to improve engagement at all, but it appears as though what you're doing is already producing results regardless of the program.
We've had a school transformation in the past couple of years, and part of the reason that the number is actually high is that some of the strategies were implemented last year without calling the school leader in me. We implemented a lot of certain strategies, like having a plan, teaching kids to track their progress toward goals, and a bit of one of the habits, teaching win-win to students for them to be able to resolve some of their differences. So that's what I attribute to the increase in the year over year, is that the outgoing principal had a good grasp of Leader in Me and began to implement some strategies when she took over post-COVID in order to put some systems in place. So we think that we can have all students meeting the goal if we can fully formally implement the program.
Okay, thank you. Appreciate you. I yield the rest of my time.
Miss Mary Sands.
Oh, sure. But my question is more, so the school choice program allows people outside of Ladies Island Elementary School to choose that, even if they're not zoned for Ladies Island Elementary School, is my understanding. So that's one of the reasons we have these programs, is to attract kids that might be interested in a Leader in Me program or a STEM program or an arts program to choose that. And there has to be capacity, which is an issue for south of the Broad. But one of my questions is pretty much, and if you guys have already said this, I apologize. All of our schools have a school choice program. It's just a question of which school choice program they have. Is that correct, Dr. Stratos?
So there's a few things, Mrs. Boatwright. First, yes, all schools do have choice programs. Not all schools have the opportunity by which to accept applicants outside of their school attendance zone, subject to school capacity. So
like Hilton Head has the IB program, but you can't, if you're outside of Hilton Head, you really can't utilize it, with few exceptions, because of the capacity issues.
Well, yes, but if we recall, we did set up an opportunity by which to have X amount of students. I believe it was not to exceed 25 per calendar year coming in at the level 4 of IB, which would be 9th grade at the IB NYP. And those students are to declare their intent for diploma by their second semester of level 5, which is the 10th grade of IB NYP. If they don't make that declaration, they would have to return to their zoned high school.
So my follow-up question on this, is this replacing a different school choice?
No, ma'am. Each school, as per the administrative regulation, is allowed to have 2 choice programs for application. I don't want to speak for Mr. Osborne much, but they are an ABC school, which is an arts integrated school, which they are highly successful at. And under the combined work with Mr. Osborne and Ms. Coleman, they started to seek the adage of Leader in Me, which does address students' development, but also addresses significantly academics for students. So the context is that once you create the climate of achievement and engagement, now I'm empowered at learning. So there's multifolds, and this would be an application process for their school.
Right. So, and that was just my nuts and bolts question, is because I don't believe we review every school's choice program, just if there's a change or an addition or something like that, right?
Yes, ma'am. Yes,
Okay.
Ma'am.
Thanks. That's just what I was trying to get my head around. Thank you so much. And Victor, I've been here over 2 years now, and I'm still on one foot off the moving train. So
We'd like to offer it as leadership through the arts.
thank you.
Thank you. Are there any more questions or discussion?
No hands are up.
Okay. Okay, so we can go on to Fusa.
Yes, ma'am.
Or do we vote on this particular one? Because I'm learning as well. Do we vote now or we're good to go?
Mrs. Cushenberry, may I make a suggestion?
Mhm.
As the administrative regulation requires that we bring the opportunity of new choice programs at schools to the full board, it would be up to the purview of Madam Chair to make the recommendation for this to go to the board.
And that's me, right?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, it would be.
I
Mrs.
make the
Gordon.
recommendation that we take the Leader in Me program choice for Ladies Island Elementary School to the full board.
Second.
You don't have to, because this is an AR, you don't vote on it. So
Okay.
you can just direct me that you want this to be at the full board. And so I'll make sure, and you can ask the staff to make a presentation at the full board.
Okay. Dr. Stratus, would you make a presentation?
So,
Yes, ma'am. I would be very proud to have our staff assist at the presentation and to continue building on Ladies Island Elementary, ma'am.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
So now we move on to Coosaw Elementary.
Thank you, Chairwoman Gordon. And what I will do is the same thing. I'll give you a little background information on this program and then allow you to ask Mrs. Pender, the principal of the school, for more information. Project-based learning at Coosaw Elementary. Coosaw has grown in its STEM program, which encompasses science, technology, engineering, and math. And that is focused in a STEM lab. They have a competitive robotics team, and they're integrating STEM within their classroom. Coosaw has began their Project Lead the Way, PLTW program this year. So Project Lead the Way is a project-based instructional design focused on hands-on, real-world activities, projects, problem solving that help kids to understand and transfer knowledge and learned in the classroom into their everyday life. So through these units of study, students work collaboratively to identify problems and to apply learning, to solve unique challenges, and to create solutions to everyday problems. The requested choice program.
I'm
Yes, ma'am?
sorry. Oh, I was trying to
I'm
figure
on
out what.
19. I'm sorry.
Okay.
I'm sorry, Ms. Cushenberry.
That's
19.
all right. I was trying to catch up with you.
I apologize. The
right.
requested choice program works in conjunction with the established leadership program, Leader in Me, to provide opportunities that allow students to demonstrate leadership skills while preparing them to be successful citizens. So if we look at their connection to a strategic goal, the goal is to continue to increase the overall percentage of students who are meeting and exceeding the state standards in core subjects, to increase the percentage of students meeting the criteria of gifted and talented, and to close the achievement gap between the student subgroups at Coosaw. Their cost is a little bit different. There is not an expected subsequent cost for this program because all of the teachers have already been trained, the units have already been purchased, and the materials have already been put into place. So at this time, I will turn it over to the board members and Ms. Pender.
Yes, please. Leave the pass, please. Hold on a second. I'm sorry, guys. Question and answer.
Is it possible for me to add to that to where I might be able to answer some questions before they come forth? I mean, I'd be happy to take the questions now, but I might be able to add a little bit to it.
Yes.
That's okay?
That's
Okay.
okay.
I kind of wanted to bring up a few things. I just piggyback off of the Leader in Me. We're in year 9 of that and it's been very successful. If you know about Coosaw, we are on the leadership is what we talk about nonstop. So the reason why we like second school choice for project-based learning is because we've been doing this for 4 years. If you look at our school renewal plan, we stated by the end of year 5 that we would be a certified STEM school. We've met with them. They've pretty much said, this is a shoe-in. You've got so much in place.
we waited. We said we're going to give ourselves 5 years. We probably could have did it in year 2 or 3. We want to solidify it, so we're going for it next year. We've already met with Cognia this year. They're fixing to assign us our coach, and they've gone through that accreditation process. So we're in year 4. So we put a lot of things in place over the last technically 5 years when we started this journey, truly, but 4 really zeroed in. We have a STEM lab that all of our students attend on a 4-day rotation from pre-K to K. We have a competitive robotics team. We've competed the last 5 years, and we're happy to say we have won. I am one of the chairs of that team. So we will be going to the Citadel next month and competing again. We hope to bring back a win. This year, we've implemented all of our maker spaces. So teachers are able to go to a maker space. There's tons of materials there to have children build and create through the engineering process. This year, our 1st grade through 5th grade teachers all attended the 2 full-day training they needed to be able to use the Project Lead the Way curriculum. Our pre-K and kindergarten were trained this year on purposeful play, which literally is like puzzle pieces, these 3 things put together. At the close of this year, our pre-K and kindergarten teachers will then receive their certification to be able to teach the Project Lead the Way. All that has been paid for already. All of the curriculum is on site, and we have begun to use the Project Lead the Way materials. And just like Mrs. McKenzie said, it is truly hands-on. Children are presented with a problem. They must use the materials to find a way to create a solution for the problem, knowing that the first time you're not always going to get it right. You have to revamp your project until you figure out a viable solution. All about critical thinking. I can attest to test scores, and I'm going to go over those test scores. So I'm going to look at scores before the pandemic, before we got into that whole loss of learning that we did not accrue, I will say, with, I love that. So I'm going to go back to 2019 when we started putting STEM in place and really being truly authentic. And like the interim principal of Lays Island stated, going for that engagement piece. So I'm going to tell you what our engagement score was in 2019 and what it is now at the last cycle of testing. We were a 2 out of 10 points. Prior pandemic, we are an 8.16 out of 10 on the last one. Our children truly feel engaged. Our parents see the progress. We have taken our students, because we incorporated STEM across subjects. We have moved our kids in ELA from 60% of kids meeting the state standard on the report card to 79.7. We are at the cusp of 80%. We've moved our math from 72.3 to 76.4. We've moved our science from 67.6 to 76.9. Those are huge jumps, especially pre-pandemic to coming out of a pandemic without that loss. I truly believe it is because we have zeroed in on truly authentic learning, real life, hands-on. Kids remember when they're doing. This, I feel like, is a super natural step for us to be able to present ourselves as a truly project-based learning school. We are happy that we have the DODEA grant that we are part of for the next 5 years, which has afforded us this opportunity for more money placed into our maker spaces, and purchase a Project Lead the Way curriculum for us has helped with that. We have someone from SREB that is our coach for the next 5 years. That's paid for through the grant as well. I'm going to give you one quick, for instance. She was there, she's with us 4 times a year. And will be throughout this process for 5 years anyway for the DODEA grant. And Dr. Stratus can speak a little bit to that, but I think the board already knows all about the DODEA grant that we've been awarded along with some other schools. For instance, she's teaching our teachers how to make sure they're implementing the engineering process with ease. So she walked them through the engineering process in their PLC on Tuesday. They had to develop a wallet that was functional for their co-partner. But it's something that our teachers are learning how to now put right into the classroom. So I would be happy to answer any questions. I'm hoping I gave you a little bit more insight into this is not just something new we're starting. We just wanted it really in place before we brought it to the board, wanting a second school choice. Yes,
Dr.
ma'am.
Watts's hands up.
Yeah, so I have a question. I'm either for you, Dr. Stratus, or Ms. Pender. So I thought we just already in this committee meeting said that the schools could have up to 2 school choice programs. So I guess I'm not comprehending, because it sounds like CUSA already has Leader in Me in STEM, and this would be a 3rd program?
We have Leader in Me, and we're looking to bring project-based learning, which is a STEM in itself. It's another name for, we only have 1 school choice right now.
So why is, to me, it doesn't seem like STEM and project-based learning are one and the same.
They are. I'll let Dr. Stratus kind of talk to that. Project-based learning is learning through the creation of different types of projects. So Project Lead the Way, which is a curriculum we have purchased, is a project-based instructional model. STEM is one and the same also, infusing science, technology, mathematics, and so forth, but in a hands-on concept, not just, we're going to use technology. We're going to put a kid on a computer. We're not just going to put a worksheet on a computer. We're going to use it for an authentic reason, creating something with the technology. So it does take it a step further. Dr. Stratus, I don't know if you want to add anything else about how those marry together.
Well, I think you're bridging on one of the things that the board will obtain a little more information is the virtual learning and that opportunity, that it is not just a stagnant piece in front of me, is the application of what we do with the electronics. The STEM is not just the idea of it being a choice, Dr. Watts. It actually is an approach that this school in particular is utilizing for integrating our state standards for application of knowledge for our students. So yes, we know that you're going to have theory, the student, right? But the students are taking that application, and the project launch, or PLTW, in combination with DODEA grant, which is taking the computer science application and project-based learning through our math classes and building that capacity so kids not only get the practice of math, but the application of math. It is a school-wide approach at CUSA. I have to share that. They walk and talk and do it from their gardens to their computer clubs. But Mrs. Pender has taken an approach to have a strong foundation, because she knew that I was going to say, where's the sustainability? Where's this? Where's that? And the result has been, and I won't speak too much for you, Mrs. Pender, but the commentary is, this is how we do it at CUSA. This is who we are.
Yeah. And
We've
she said, with we've made a partnership with Clemson Extension, which is through project-based learning. I met with them so if you don't know, we have a 17-bed garden that we grow vegetables and fruits year long, and our children grow those, they plant those, they eat those, we serve them. And we give any extras to the community. We've linked with Clemson Extension because they're coming in and doing project-based learning as well. I sat down with them this summer. We looked at all of the science standards, and basically at each grade level, there's relatively 4 units when you break it down per grade level. How can they help us with 1 unit at every single grade level? So they are actually coming in and doing projects with our kids also from pre-K all the way up to 5th. We're fixing to hatch our chicks here in a few weeks, if anybody'd like to see those incubators going. So it truly is learning through projects. So STEM marries very well to it. They're kind of become interchangeable. I hope that helps you out. But
yeah, I have a second question, unrelated. Okay. And that is since you mentioned, Ms. Pender, that the Leader in Me has been at CUSA for 9 years, and going back to our discussion on Ladies Island Elementary, the cost annually, do you still require the $7,100 cost for coaching each year?
No, I have the last 3 years. 1 year I did not, 2 years I did not do any coaching at all because we run very smoothly. Last year and this year I did bring them back because I brought them back on the premise of coming with a STEM leadership initiative. So they came in and we did 1 coaching day. A lot of people starting out will do more than 1 coaching day so they can get everything in place. But no, we don't need all of that. Now, once it gets growing, the cost comes down.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Mrs. Cushenberry, may I just build on that a moment?
You mean Ms. Barton? Go ahead.
Well, for Dr. Guadz, I had her
Yes.
question. We bundle some from the district level at those costs to bring it down for our school sites as well. So we do manage some negotiating with
Okay,
the
thank you.
primary. Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Okay. I see Ms. Boatwright's hand is up.
Thank you. So one of my questions is, and I mean, congratulations on the tremendous increase in school engagement. I mean, that's phenomenal. One of my questions is, as we are, because I know my son's in a project, Lead the Way at a high school level. It's a technology program. It's a great program. I don't think that's one of Hilton Head's choice programs. So what I need to understand this a little better, and maybe when you come back to the full board, is I kind of want to understand a little bit more rather than this specific school. I don't feel like I have a handle on the school choice thing. I think it's a great thing. I just don't know how many schools, what they have, how many schools have one, how many schools have two. Can you have Project Lead the Way without making it school choice? I need to kind of understand that a little bit better. I don't need that to happen right now, but maybe at the when it comes to the board. And then my second part of that question, as we get sort of an inventory, are we assessing, like, obviously whatever CUSA is doing is working really, really well. So wouldn't we want to replicate their school choice programs in other elementary schools? And you're looking at other elementary schools where we've tried a school choice and it hasn't really worked out so well, or it's not having the same impact. Are we doing that kind of analysis?
Give me 1 second. Madam Gordon, may I respond?
Yes, you may.
Thank you, ma'am. So I know this is outside of the presentation work, Mrs. Boatwright. So I do want to share that, yes, there are CTE programs within schools that are not identified to be part of choice application, because we also recognize that schools may only have 2 choice application programs. So they have in-house programs, and Mrs. Gilbert's online. She could speak a little more to this regard. But I very much on that track mindedness of how you're sharing, like, but we have PLTW through high school. We have culinary through high school. Are these choice applications for schools? At this time, we only provide opportunity of 2 choice applications because so many schools already have these programs within their house.
So do you mind if I follow up real quick on that, Ms. Dr. Stratos? Because that helps a lot. And I agree. I think that, you don't have to be like, we only can offer Project Lead the Way as a school choice. What I would love to understand is just what programs are being offered at what schools, and then which ones are designated for school choice, just to kind of get a sense of, we hear about so many great programs and pilot programs and grants and, the magnet, what do they call it? The MSAP, the magnet school.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So I know I've heard about them over time, kind of sprinkled throughout the last 2 years. Is there a way to get some sort of just a, bullet pointed, comprehensive, maybe even on a spreadsheet type of list of what we got?
Madam Chair, may I? Because I'm getting ahead of myself on the items, but may
Yes,
I go
you
ahead? Thank you, ma'am. So board members, just to understand, we are working currently on the choice handbook. That choice handbook will be a full presentation to the board. I have put that on hold up until these presentation and approval or decision for these 2 applications, so that they may be included. Within that choice handbook, you will see the marketing and language in a table of everything that you're asking about, and then we'll be able to present those materials to you so that you could have your own edification within your community to talk about our schools. So, I mean, that's one of the essence of that choice booklet. So that is being prepared. It has gone through its 4th edit. It's actually in the corner of my conference. So we could, my hope is to get that set up as a board presentation as well, ma'am, once I get through this process with both these schools.
And then I know you answered that question. Then do we analyze those school choice programs?
Yes, ma'am. We do an analysis, and that is part of at the secondary level at the high school. It is rated within our completers if they have programs, and we do keep an eye on the attrition of students, and that's one of the things we've tried to improve with master scheduling at the entry level, so that if we have too many entry level, you lose opportunity for more sections. As we progress, we've kind of had that conversation in the past. So that was one of the items that Mrs. Gilbert brought up. with the idea of pushing down computer science graduation requirement into the middle schools so that we could provide more opportunities for our teachers to have more sections at level 3 and 4. So yes, we do keep a track of that. I am required to do that. And we've made recommendations to schools as a result of that review.
Thank you, Dr. Stratus and Ms. Boatright. I see Mr. Smith's hand up.
You're muted, William.
Yes. Also, I heard that they were talking about the Ladies Island program, but for the Ladies Island program, the district, we're not paying for that program, are we? Ladies Island Elementary School, Leader and me, the district didn't, we don't have a cost on that, correct?
Dr. Stratus, would you answer that, please?
Yes, ma'am. No, we don't, Mr. Smith. At this time, we are able to, through a grant, through South Carolina.
Okay, yeah, I just wanted to bring that forward. I know we're talking about the cost of the program, but I just noticed that. I just wanted to clarify that at Ladies Island Middle School, elementary school, that we're not, that program is not costing the district anything. I just wanted to be clear on that.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Smith. Thank you. Yes, we covered that earlier. Appreciate you bringing it up. Any more questions? I recommend that we take this. I can't see. Kusau Elementary, is it PLWT? Project Lead the Way?
Project-based learning.
Project-based learning. Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
Project-based learning to the full board. Dr. Stratus, would you be able to do that?
Yes, ma'am. That would be, should we have it placed on through committee for the board meeting for the 7th? Yes, ma'am. We will bring it forward. Thank you.
Ms. Gord, if this is the last presentation, before you start the next one, I used the wrong telephone number for Mr. Cook. So if I can give him a call, he provided another number that I can reach him directly. So can I make that call at this time before you start your next presentation?
Yes, Ms. Cushionberry.
Okay.
And also to the members, I apologize. I have some contractors who came in today, so I had to let them in. I forgot about them. So I appreciate your patience here.
I'm going to put you on speakerphone and have you speak during public comments now. Are you ready?
Yeah, thank you very much.
Can you all hear him? Go ahead. Can you hear? Go ahead and speak. Can you say your name loud? Can you all hear him?
I cannot.
No.
I cannot either.
Okay. Trying to figure out how to. Try again. Go ahead. David? Let me try you on my cell phone. Let me try you call you right back. All right. Let me try him on this phone.
No problem.
Okay. Can you hear him now? Go ahead, David.
Well, thank you for calling. I appreciate it.
Can you hear him?
Really good?
Yes, they're saying yes.
Okay, great, thanks. Committee members, everyone in attendance, I appreciate you giving me a chance to speak. Sorry for the confusion earlier. I apologize for that. I want to comment on future topics, one of which should be the appropriate assignment of committee members to the book review committees. It's very clear that when these book review committees are assembled, Dr. Stratus and her staff are trying very hard to do their jobs, but somehow they're avoiding the use of people from the community when assigning committee members to positions as a parent representing school, family on multiple occasions, or having someone from the community that is not someone of the staff. This also includes the use of district staff in place of community members. On a couple of other occasions, elementary school teachers have been appointed to areas that are considered expertise for a book that is used in the high schools. Also not appropriate. We have dozens of willing people in the community to be on these review committees, but they're not being contacted. Future topics should include at your board meetings or committee meetings the proper assignment of citizens and to avoid assigning district staff in an obviously biased manner. It's not only wrong, but it also violates the policy you wrote. Yes, I said that right. It does violate your own policy. Also, the policy being violated is 4.1 regards to staff conduct in which teachers and librarians are distributing sexually explicit material. That violates the conduct policy as well. I respectfully request the academic committee to investigate the violation of both of these policies now in your discussions this afternoon, or move to have them included in the board meeting or the work session this Friday. Thank you and have a great evening.
Thank you, Bob. Thank you for your call. Have a good night. You too. All right. Okay. That is it. That is it.
Okay, that's it. Madam
Um,
Madam Chair, I believe we need to go back to the textbook adoption.
Oh.
And we'll pull up the PowerPoint slides, please. Yes, ma'am.
And Madam
Hey,
Chair, I believe
excuse me.
Mr. Smith
Mr.
has,
Smith has his hand up. Thank you, Dr. Stratus.
He never
Miss-
lowered it from before.
Okay, let's make sure. So,
He doesn't seem to be there
okay,
now.
thank you.
You're welcome.
So,
I was trying to lower it, but it was stuck.
Ms. Gilbert, what page do you want me to start? Am I at the, okay.
Yes, ma'am, that's perfect. May I proceed, Madam Chair? Yes, you may, Ms. Gilbert. Okay. So good evening, everyone. Good evening to the board members, and I want to especially welcome Mrs. Gordon and Mr. Nay. Ms. Gordon was always a great supporter of our programs and instruction and career and tech ed when you were in the schools. And Mr. Nay, I want to thank you, sir, for your military service. I come from a military family, so thank you so much. If you can navigate that, you can certainly will be a wonderful asset to our board. I'm Karen Gilbert. I serve as the Director for Career and Technical Education under Dr. Stratos.
And then my colleague, Mrs. Karen McKenzie, is the Director of Teaching and Learning. So we appreciate the opportunity tonight to share with you an annual process for textbook or instructional materials selection. We have two major content areas. I'll handle the one for career and technical ed, and Ms. McKenzie will handle the one for the academics. We wanted to share with you just briefly, since you are new to this area, to go over the process that I think will be helpful, and then we'll share with you what our teachers have selected for your review and any questions. And then from there, Madam Chair, then we would ask that, if approved by this committee, that we take it to the full board for the process. So we always, as far as our overview, whether it's career and tech ed, the arts, world languages, the core subject areas, it needs to be standards-based instruction that supports the curriculum, and it's what should drive our instructional selections. We have some governing guidance or regulations requirements. First of all, locally for our district, we use regulation IS 36, and that should be part of your packet. If not, we'll be glad to provide that. And also, we wanted to note that in today's time, it's not just the printed book that the state goes through the adoption process. It's actually more of a modernized approach. It is ebooks in formats. It's supplemental instructional materials, and typically they are bundled as an option for districts, printed and a digital combo. They have an opportunity sometimes to state, if additional funding comes available, then we may come to you a second time throughout the year to order additional copies that the teachers have an opportunity to select, to review and select. But typically it is an annual process where they have the materials early on, and then we come to you at this time, so that this will be for the next school year, 23-24 school year. Another governing document that we'll be glad to provide, if it's not already in board docs, is the State Board of Education. It's Regulation 4370, and it drives the adoption cycle. So actually, by the time the instructional materials, ebooks, printed books, come to the school districts for further review and selection, it's already gone through a vetting process. So we want to make sure that we reiterated that. And then obviously it's also based off of availability of funding. Next slide, please, Mrs. Cushenberry. Ms. McKenzie.
Thank you, Mrs. Gordon, and thank you again, board members. I just want to touch on a few things as far as administrative regulation IS 36. This regulation has several parts to it. First, our district textbook coordinator informs all of the Beaufort County schools of any upcoming textbook adoption selection. And what she sends out to our schools is the different content areas, the grade levels that are being considered, a list of those textbooks and the publishers that they can get those from, as well as dates and times of caravans. And for example, we have one coming up on a new adoption soon in Columbia, and a timeline for final selections for our district. The schools get a form. It goes out to all the teachers who teach that particular course, and they're all provided the opportunity to assess those instructional materials. They can reach out to those approved vendors and get sample copies or request digital access. Ms. Gilbert was talking about a lot of our textbook now comes in dual form, a textbook form or a digital access. So most of the times we are granted that digital access during our review process. Each school is then asked to complete the IS 36E form, which is a verification form. And what they do is they sit down and look at these books and they say, this is the one we want for our school. And they sign that and send that back to our textbook coordinator. The next step is our district textbook coordinator, along with those of us in instructional services under Dr. Stratus, we review those selections and we compile a list of their top choices. What does our district as a whole have as their majority rules top choice? The information regarding those selections with the name and the publisher are then put together in a presentation, and we bring that forward to academic committee for review and for eventual school board approval. And that's where we are tonight. So the list at our secondary level that came out from the state, and these came out to the district levels at the beginning of the year, were anatomy and physiology to cover grades 9 through 12, earth science 9 through 12, environmental science 9 through 12, and advanced placement environmental science, marine science, physical education, and that's the full credit course that our students must take. It's kind of a dual course. One half of that is physical fitness, one half of that is health. So it's, do you eat well? Those kind of things. U.S. government and U.S. government advanced placement. The one we're really excited about is U.S. history and constitution and U.S. history and constitution advanced placement. So those went out to our schools, and these are their selections. Anatomy and physiology 9 through 12. Our schools selected Essentials of Human Anatomy and Physiology. That is the 13th edition by Savas Publisher. For that physical education full credit course, this is actually really cool because it comes in 2 pieces. So one is that physical body piece, introduction, and the next one is that health and nutrition 1B, and that's through e-dynamic learning. So again, that's going to be a digital resource there for our teachers and students. Earth Science for 9-12 is Inspire Earth Science, and that's by McGraw-Hill. And our Marine Science is another McGraw-Hill book, Marine Science 2nd edition. Environmental Sciences, our teachers decided that Environmental Science, Sustaining Your World, the 1st edition, and this is by National Geographic Learning through Cengage, which is one of their subsidiary publishing companies. And Environmental Science 9 through 12 Advanced Placement, they decided to go with Environment, the Science Behind the Stories, 7th edition, AP edition, and that's done by Pearson Publishing. U.S. government, they went with United States government, and that's a Houghton Mifflin Harcourt text. And U.S. government advanced placement, they went with Advanced Placement Edition, United States Government and Politics, 3rd edition, and that's through Perfection Publishing. U.S. History and Constitution is American Through the Lens, and this is a 1st edition. It is also through National Geographic Learning, which is Cengage Corporation. And the U.S. History and Constitution Advanced Placement, they went with American History, Connecting with the Past. This is a 15th edition textbook, AP edition, McGraw-Hill. And I'm going to turn it back over to Mrs. Gilbert now to go through the career and technology education selection.
So I'll share with the 7 selections that's up for adoption for this, and then we'll entertain questions. So for this year's adoption that can go into effect for the next school year, we have 7 for your consideration. We have 1 middle school course. And again, this is not exhaustive of the full list of all career and tech ed options or courses that we offer in our district. This is simply what the state goes through their vetting process that comes available each year put forth. So for middle school, we have the option for Fundamentals of Healthcare. This is an 8th grade only course. For our high schools, we have available for selection Advanced Baking and Pastry, Digital Media Marketing, Digital Multimedia, Digital Workplace Applications, which is formerly called Integrated Business Apps, Event and Entertainment Management, and Image Editing. I should note that these courses vary per course offering for the various schools. Next slide, please. So our career and technical education teachers, for their selections for advanced baking and pastry, we have culinary at ACE, at Battery Creek, and at Hilton Head. So their selection for this is Revel for On Baking by Savas Learning. For the digital media marketing, we have one school for that. So she selected Foundations of Marketing under the National Geographic Learning for Cengage. For digital multimedia, we have 3 schools that currently select that. So those teachers selected My Lab. It's an all digital bundle. So they learn the Adobe applications, and that's by Savas Learning. Then for the digital workplace applications, that's offered at a couple of our high schools. They selected the Shelley Cashman series, the introductory piece, and that is again through Cengage, the Nat Geo. For event and entertainment management, that is at our Hilton Head Island High School. They're looking at for another school as well. So that they selected Knowledge Matters, Sports and Entertainment Simulation, and that is a digital set only. It's by eDynamic Learning. And then for the fundamentals of healthcare, for the middle school, we have one teacher currently teaching another middle school looking at it as part of the MedTech 7 that you've heard about for the Beaufort cluster. And then I also asked a high school health sciences teacher to review it as well, since it would be an introductory course. So they selected the middle school Exploring Health Science by eDynamic Learning. And then finally, image editing, which is offered at a couple of our high schools, and they selected the Adobe Photoshop Revealed. They've had this in the past. This is the updated version for the cloud, and it is print and digital, and it's through Nat Geo for Cengage. So our next steps, as Mrs. McKenzie noted, for your review, any questions that you have, then we would want to take it to the board for full approval. And then our schools would then be able to do what they call pre-ordering to get in the database called Destiny, so that they'll be able to process their orders. Any questions?
Mr. Campbell.
Yes, I think someone mentioned something about history books, United States history.
Yes, Mr. Campbell, that is true.
Okay, who do the State Department of Education go over the history, U.S. history, and add anything or take away anything from it?
The way that process works is when the adoption comes up, they gather people from all around the state, a group of teachers. Those teachers go through an application process to determine whether or not if they have that lens on U.S. history, American history, or American government. They are selected to come in and they review all the textbooks for accuracy and alignment to state standards prior to those books coming out to the individual districts for selection. So they've had a double review at this point.
Okay, thank you. I just have another comment, but I'll do that for another time. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Campbell.
Any more comments or questions? Ms. Cushenberry, do you see any hands that I don't see?
No, ma'am.
All right. If there are no more questions or discussions, I'll move that we take this to the full board. I appreciate Ms. Gilbert and Ms. McKenzie giving your reports tonight. I appreciate it very much. Very, very good. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Can I ask a question? Ms. Dr. Stratus, does the textbooks, this needs board approval, correct?
Yes, ma'am. We will need to submit a motion
Okay.
for the
Okay.
list of books for approval. I would suggest we will have the PowerPoint presentation to show the alignment of the state regulation as well as the administrative reg. Then we will have a separate list with the books and a motion. Is that? Yes, ma'am.
Thank you, Dr. Stratus.
Thank you,
Anything
Madam
else, Ms.
Gordon.
Cushenberry?
I think that's it for, we go to the next topic. Can you see it's the academic school year calendar?
I don't see it on I can't see it.
Okay.
Oh, there
All
you
right.
go.
It's just populated.
Thank you.
Madam Gordon, may I proceed? Madam Chair.
Yes, you may. Please, Dr. Stratus, proceed.
Thank you, ma'am. Board members, good evening. We bring forward recommendation and review, actually, of calendars. I first want us to start a little background information on the process that we utilize for academic calendars here within Beaufort County, and to demonstrate the alignment to our administrative regulation as well as the state. The first few slides in this presentation are just a reminder. You should have in your packet IS4, which is our administrative regulation for school year calendar, Roman numeral 3, alpha A. Thank you. And I did the highlighting just to coordinate with the presentation. So the yellow just is referring to slide 2. Gives information to you regarding the process, the days that are required. As we were familiar, there are 10 staff development days that are required for our academic calendar, as inquired earlier, and I'll give the key to that information as we get to the Excel photos in the presentation. Our academic calendar must be completed and approved by March 31st. Roman numeral 4 shares the information regarding the need for 3 emergency days. And you'll see that within the proposed calendar, they will be highlighted in purple. It lends language in this area in green for the board, just with regard for your knowledge, for some background with regard if we do run out of days and we utilize days, some of the options for you as board members that you may have. And Roman numeral 5 in the blue basically gives information to the process itself. The predominant work of the calendar falls upon myself, the Chief Instructional Officer, and we do work in committees. And you'll see that in the next slide that Mrs. Cushenberry will bring up. We should be landing on slide 4, if possible. I may be off. Perfect. Thank you. This gives a little background for you to understand when we started, and that was in the month of November. We had drafts. We've gone from 11 to 9 to 7 to 6 to 5 to 3 drafts that have gone through committee and review. In November, December, we had input from those at the district level, and I have to share that as multiple divisions from finance, human resources, payroll, legal, and then eyes within the division itself to see or if we are in accordance with the administrative regulation. In January, we received input from school administrators in detail through committee, as well as teacher input. We're now going forward at academic committee for your input, and then going forward, should it be your desire to go forward to the board. If we may go to slide 5. Slide 5 is just a light reminder of some of the state requirements under regulation 59-1.425 that requires us to have 180 days of instruction, 190 contractual days. It also brings language, if you look at the end of the paragraph, where it starts with all school districts, including those approved as e-learning districts. The e-learning pilot project must include 3 scheduled makeup days in their 2021-22 school year. I'd like to pause just for a moment for us to understand that Beaufort County is within the e-learning pilot project, subject to our capability of having that one-to-one ratio of one student to a device. That under e-learning, that allows us for 5 days that the superintendent has the right upon review and taking in information to ask for an e-learning day, to declare one, which lends for those makeup days, that the other 3 makeup days on our calendar to be utilized when it really is a situation of devastation. We lose power, we lose internet, tornadoes, all of the above. You may please go to slide 6. This is just, again, a refresher to understand why we start at the time that we do. And that was put into act in 07 and 08. Now we are to start the 3rd Monday in August. During the first days of school that many of you are familiar with regard to the professional development days, we have to provide our teachers in the beginning a minimum of 3 days for collegial professional development, and no more than 2 days of the start of an academic calendar may be used for preparation of opening of schools, and then a remaining 5 professional development or teacher planning days are to be utilized throughout the calendar for PD, teacher development, and parent conferences. Your next bullet is a reminder that we must be within 6 hours of instruction. And slide 7. Once again, the makeup days is your first bullet. The instructional days for secondary students must be a minimum of 6 hours of instruction. That is as well for our elementary students. And that the state law allows elementary and secondary schools may reduce the length of the instructional day to not less than 3 hours for not more than 3 days in the calendar year. And I will walk you through this on our presentation, all right? For those are what we're familiar with as half days. And many of our elementary schools utilize that time for parent conferences. And I think the last bullet is important just as a reminder to ourselves and our school administrators that we shared with them, is that a priority during the instructional day is instruction. It is to be given to teaching and learning tasks and minimize them of class disruptions. Every now and then it is in the state language. It is good that we have a reminder. If we go to slide 8, thank you, Mrs. Cushenberry. This is an 84 first semester, thank you, 96-day split. I will walk through this and give from the very beginning. We look at the month of August. The circle on the 14th identifies the first day for teachers to report to their schools. There was overwhelming input from both school site administrators and teachers asking for 5 days at the beginning of the academic school year, because 1 day is utilized by the district for district PD. Teachers need 2 days for setting up their classrooms, and then the school sites themselves have asked for 2 days for working with their teachers as well. If you look at this, and there were 9 instructional days in that month. If we look at the month of September, there is 1 holiday identified. And into the month of October, the first quarter, we recognize there are 2 quarters per semester. The first quarter will end on the 18th. That orange or melon or goldenrod color designates a half day. That half day is to be utilized for students reporting for half the day. Elementary schools have asked continually that those days are added at the end of a quarter in order to provide for the opportunity for parent conferences. On the 19th is the start of the second quarter. If you will go down to the month of November, please. By state regulations, we recognize that even years are to have an election day closure of our schools. Election day is November 7th. It is identified in red. Although it is not an even day, we also recognize the opportunity to vote and to provide our schools with safety is not that easy for many of our schools. So high recommendation has come in that on the 7th, that we, for all election days, we take into consideration to give our employees the opportunity as well to vote, and that election day our schools are closed. On 2023, Veterans Day is falling on the 11th. High recommendation to recognize our members in our district who have provided military service to still give a day off, and that is why you see the 10th off. The blue on the 22nd designates a day off. It is not a holiday. It will be updated to be all red because I understand it is easier for reading since the 23rd is the holiday that is Thanksgiving. But we recognize that the 22nd, 23rd, and 24th of November would be Thanksgiving holiday. And the second quarter or first semester is identified to close on the 22nd of December, which is a half day. The 25th is Christmas. And again, I will convert those blues to all red for next presentation. And winter break will take you through the technically from the afternoon of dismissal of the 22nd, I apologize, to the reporting for teachers on the 4th of January. The 3rd of January in purple is a required makeup day in the event of weather. Now, there was conversation in many places, and this is why we're open for recommendation as well from board for any of our calendars, that the makeup day should be on the 5th, where teachers' input was they wanted the makeup day first so that they could have PD. The argument goes both ways. Second semester would start on January 8th. Federal holiday on the 15th. A professional development day is in yellow for February 16th. Lens for a long weekend. I believe that is President's Day tied to the 19th of February. And if we proceed to March, third marking period will end on the 18th, which is a Monday. We did not have any more half days, and I'll explain to that in a moment why, as you get to see when graduation starts. Their preference was to leave it for graduation and in June, from input from committees. A weather makeup day is on the 28th. Good Friday is the 29th. Recognizing Easter weekend. And here's a uniqueness. This calendar, I want us to recognize that 2024 has leap year, as well as a solar eclipse on the 8th of April. If we can recall back about three years ago, I want to say almost 3.5 years ago, solar eclipse has landed during dismissals, and there was significant worry about our young students and looking into the sky. So that's why recommendation was for the 8th to be a makeup day. Should it not be utilized, it would be a long weekend. Spring break starts the 15th. Those of you not familiar with the development of the calendar, spring break has traditionally been in this county after the Masters golf tournament and during Heritage Tournament, subject to the amount of traffic, commutations, and a high amount of people who work to support that tournament here in Beaufort County. The month of May has one holiday. And as you go into June, you will see that as the last final half day. Committee members had recommended to have the last day of the academic school year as the half day. 2 remaining PDs would be the 4th and the 5th of June. Graduation would start the afternoon of the 3rd of June, that we would have graduation starting on that day. Summer school on this calendar would start June 10th. We recognize that Juneteenth, all schools and summer school and district offices will be closed. Mrs. Cushenberry, if you go to slide 9. Much of first semester on slide 9 is the same as the prior. That's why I have it identified as B, 84-96 split. Where you will see the change will be in second semester and winter break. Thank you. This was the strongest recommended by all committees. It puts the makeup day on the Friday, the 2 PD days in beginning of second semester, which has been overwhelmingly a request by teachers and administrators. That would be January 8th and 9th. Second semester would start on the 10th. The month of February is the same as the prior calendar. Where you will see another change will be in the month of March. As you will note, the weather makeup day that was on the 28th of March is actually placed on the Monday post Easter Sunday. That was a request by our teachers at large. That was a unified request because of the amount of travel that families try to do to be with families during the holiday. There was also a request by one teacher in particular for us as a system to think about options that years ago for those who do not celebrate Easter, but early in the year do celebrate High Holiday, Rosh Hashanah, and Yom Kippur. You know, there was that's a conversation that the teacher had asked me to come forward, that will we ever reconsider those days in a calendar, or will we ever consider how others may be able to recognize their high holiday? And I just wanted to bring that forward rhetorically to the board for conversation, maybe at a later date. Because this teacher particularly understood that we didn't have much give in either of these first 2 calendar proposals for that provision. To share in the month of April, we notice we have the 1st and the 8th, and then on spring break starting on the 15th. So the 1st and the 8th would be weather makeup days. The month of May is the same as the prior calendar brought forward to you. And the shift actually happens in June. Because of 2 days shifting, it will take instruction to the 3rd and 4th. The 5th would be a half day. That would be the start of graduation. Summer school would still start on the 10th. But we would incorporate the 10th as a teacher planning day for teachers to be able to have the opportunity to plan. Then instruction would start on the 11th of June, and Juneteenth would be a day off for all teachers, students, as well as district personnel. Thank you, Mrs. Cushenberry. And before I proceed with this, I need to share a few things that we had gone through with committees actually. Subject to the amount of work that's needed to open up our schools this coming year due to referendum, we were not able to go forward with any of a modified calendar to look at a earlier start date. That was a significant amount of debate between our division and other divisions, but the reality is our schools need to be ready to open. So should one of the questions rise as to why not an earlier start date outside of what is required by law, this academic year, coming up academic year, there is a significant amount of summer work at our schools. And the sentiment was that the time is needed to get our schools ready for openings. I did want to share that language as well. This calendar option in front of you at this time, it is a 90-90 split. What a 90-90 split means is that you will have exactly 90 days per semester. The 2 days in pink are basically were identified with Summer Institute. Where on the other calendars, we would have Summer Institute the week prior. The 16th would be first teacher contact. 21st as in each option would be the first on student contact day. Thank you. I was getting worried. I said, I lost a month, Mrs. Cushenberry. Thank you. The 27th would be the end of the first marking period or quarter. The 30th would be the start of the second quarter. And again, you'll see a similar pattern in the month of November. You'll see a similar pattern for the month of December as well. And you'll see, as in the just prior presented calendar, the 4th and 5th of January were identified as makeup days. But what it's not similar as to the other calendars. First semester will be continuing through January 8th, 9, 10, 11, 12. There would be a holiday. There would be 2 more instructional days and then the 2 PD days in order for readiness for second semester. Second semester is identified on this calendar to start on the 22nd, hence a 90-90 split. Same days off for the month of February. On this calendar, actually, the third quarter, I pushed a half day because if you note, I did not have a half day in the month of December at the close of the semester. On December 22nd, we placed a half day there by recommendation. Thank you, Mrs. Cushenberry. And all our other, and I'm pointing as if, right, on the 22nd, all the other 2 calendars had the 22nd as a half day. On this version, the recommendation, it is March 28th is the half day. Good Friday would be off. The following Monday would be a makeup day. If not utilized, that Monday would be a day off. And fourth quarter would start on April 2nd. To accommodate the options of solar eclipse, where teachers would report, students would be home with family. Recommendation was that the 8th is a PD day, and you will see that spring break is the same as in the prior versions. If you will go to the month of June. Thank you. This version allows for Friday, June 7th to be a half day. That would be the last student contact. Graduations would start that afternoon. They will continue through the 10th, 11th, and 12th. Those days in yellow are professional development. Summer school will be identified to start on the 17th. And as in the other calendar versions, the 19th would be a day off, and summer school in this version would carry through the month of July. Those are the 3 versions that have gone through committee. The one that has come through with the strongest recommendation by both administrators and teachers was the second version. That was the 84-96 split with Alpha B. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Stratus.
Yes, ma'am.
Are there any questions or discussions? Dr. Quas?
Yes, Dr. Stratus, thank you. So our question for you, are all advanced placement courses only taught in the spring?
Excellent question. So testing is available in May. Predominant. A wise principal is going to put a precursor course free to that AP course, or have a following course that is going to lend the opportunity for me to integrate second semester review for readiness. So master schedule lends opportunity for principals to be able to align coursework for readiness for students to sit for their AP exams.
Okay, so I heard what you said, but
I had to give you, so the answer is yes, as well as IB for diploma courses.
so
Right,
they're the AP course, not pre-AP or honors course or anything like that.
Right.
AP courses and IB courses. Let's not muddy the waters with IB. AP courses are only offered spring semester.
Yes, they're offered in spring semester, students sit. And I can confirm that one more time, ma'am.
Okay.
All right, Mrs. McKinsey. I don't know if she's still on. I was going to ask her to pull up. I didn't want to cross-check, but she may have left.
She's on.
Yes, ma'am, I'm still here.
May you confirm that I believe the answer is yes. I had looked that up in the past. Because even with the AP government class, we would have our students sit in Gov Honors and then sit for the AP course in springtime. Could you pull up College Board calendar, pretty please?
Yes, ma'am, I
So,
will.
Ms. McKenzie, my question is, are the AP courses in Beaufort County School District only offered in the spring semester?
They are. As she's pulling that up, because advanced placement sets the calendar, Dr. Guads.
Mm-hmm. I know all the testing is in May for those classes.
Yes, and that's why I shared that, not that I was wise, but a wise principal would do government honors first semester.
Yeah, exactly. Okay.
Right, got it. And then second semester, because that is when AP calendar has that you sit for the assessment. And then my students would sit second semester for the government AP course. Because they designate the calendar, not us.
Mm-hmm.
That's correct, Dr. Stratus. They are still only offered in the spring.
Okay, thank you.
Chloe has stepped away. Oh, you have Ms. Cartledge and Ms. Boatwright's hands are up.
Okay, Ms. Cartledge, please.
Yes, good evening, board members. Thank you for the opportunity to speak briefly. And Ms. Gordon and Mr. Nay, I did want to mention the statute 15/1990 subsection 12. It is the board's responsibility establish the annual calendar, have the authority to establish an annual school calendar for students, faculty, and staff to include starting dates, ending dates, holidays, makeup days, in-service days, and professional development days. So Dr. Stratus and our team are covering all that information for you today, but I just wanted to point that out for our new board members. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Cartledge. Ms. Boatwright, please.
Oh, thank you, Madam Chair. You said something at the beginning of the presentation that caught my attention when you said that you were reiterating that instructional days should be used for instruction.
Yes, ma'am.
So I had a concern brought to me that we were no longer going to be doing field trips after March 1st or something like that. And people were confused. And I was like, well, I don't know if that's right. Is that related to your thesis there?
Please give me 1 second. It's a superintendent. I do apologize. We're calling him later. So, Mrs. Boatwright, there's two things. A field trip should always be tied to standards and teaching and learning. So that's one of the items that I've put in place. The second item is from the end of February, unless there is competition, either for athletics, robotics, something tied specifically for a grant, even for PD. I want to say music performance because I have those competing in music or doing hands-on work with professionals in orchestra because schools are an art school. We have limited movement so that we have focus on academics.
So the district has, so this is just because I've never heard this before. Limited movement sounds like a code status type thing. Like we're going into limited movement status.
Okay.
What is, I don't know, I'm just trying to understand because it's caused a little bit of confusion and concern. What I hear you saying is if it's athletics, they can go, but
if they're in competition.
doesn't, so, okay. I just wonder, if these opportunities, because one thing the board has expressed in the past is, wanting more field trips, more, hands-on, more interactive, where if people had them already scheduled, did they have to cancel it? Or was this well known in advance? It's a little, I'm just confused.
Information was shared. And I'm okay with being the one reiterating that information to principals. You may not like what was said. And I'm okay.
No one was really complaining so much as more like.
No, they're not because they would, I didn't know, I didn't hear this. And I'm trying to be as polite as possible, but I have worked with every school that has reached out to the point where they have even shared lesson plans. They have something academic. It is in a non-accountable grade level, right? I have approved their field trips, but I strongly feel that there's a lot of opportunities for academic growth for us. So let's focus on what is happening in the month of May as well.
Okay. Thanks.
Okay.
Dr. Watts' hands up.
Okay, I see Ingrid still has up. Okay. Go ahead, Dr. Watts.
Hi. So as Ms. Cartlidge said, and as the presentation indicates, this is something that the board must vote on to approve the calendar. So your committee can just move this forward to the board as is, and the board can, hear the presentation about the 3 different calendars, or your committee, you could have a motion. One of your members could make a motion to bring forward which choice, so that's up to your committee, but I just wanted to tell you that, Chloe.
Okay, yes, I understand. Thank you.
Okay, that's
Thank
it.
you. Thank
You're
you.
welcome.
Okay. I saw Mr. Smith. He was at the bottom. Is he still, hands still up?
No, his hand's not up.
Okay, Dr. Stratus, please.
Madam Chair, so the recommendation from all committees was option B. If that would be an item for academic committee to take into consideration. That was the second presentation. That was unanimous from administrators, with the exception if you go to the month of April. Mrs. Cushionberry, right, thank you. The one shift was that we put the 2 weather makeup days in April.
In April, yeah.
Yes, ma'am. The teachers absolutely supported this recommendation.
Dr. Stratus, I have a question for you.
Yes,
I
ma'am.
see where the Christmas or the break is for 2023. All of them, I believe. The 22nd of December is the kids' last day. Or is this that's a half day on the B schedule?
Yes, ma'am.
And then that Monday is Christmas.
Yes, ma'am.
So, okay. Any parental input in this or just all teachers? Because I'm just thinking as a parent, that's real close to Christmas Day. It's not well, anyway, that's just me.
Yeah,
How
no,
was that received? Is that being received well by parents?
well, may I, Mrs. Gordon, Madam
Yes.
Gordon? Yes, so, ma'am, the guidelines that are actually, it is the principal's responsibility to get this once it's approved by board. But committees are not, we're not required to have committee parents involvement.
Okay.
Actually, the language put forward with the AR as well as the state language is that it is an internal committee work to present. But that was brought forward. But when you look at the month of August,
Okay.
we don't have any more give. I
No,
cannot
you don't. That I
earlier.
see.
Yes, ma'am.
I
So,
understand.
yes, that was absolutely a point brought forward. But the commentary was with timeliness of release, families could accommodate this.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you, Dr. Stratus.
Oh, thank you, ma'am.
Anyone else? I move that.
William's
Plan
hands
B.
up. William's
William?
hands up now.
Okay. I'm sorry, William, I didn't see you.
Although you probably, I just put my hands about. I was thinking where I wanted to ask the question. This to think about that point that was just discussed. Is that is something that we may want to revisit in terms of prior to making that vote. See how parents feel about that. From the well, the question comes to me is, I guess this calendar is. I don't think it's an emergency for this calendar to go out right now, but I think it is important to have that parent input around about that time about getting out, and that is very close to some parents who are traveling and doing different things. In terms of timing, that can be a bit concerning, because we had some people this year who was concerned about the timing that we got out this year. So we don't want to make that. Well, Dr. Strauss, go ahead.
Well, Mrs. Smith, the complication is the law that was pushed with regard to the start of the third Monday of the month of August. No sooner than the third Monday in the month of August. And adding to that is that our facilities and operations team have, and we were over a significant meeting with them. They have time tasked summer school work up through the beginning of August, lending them opportunity if there's any lag time. They need as much time as possible this summer in order to get our schools ready, tied to the task timetable that they have for projects. I have no give to start earlier subject to law. So I don't have any more days to shift in the month of December within this calendar. So I recognize that we have March 31st, but that subject to how the days are falling, that was tied to the urgency to try to bring this as soon as possible to the board so that our families would be able to have opportunity for appropriate planning. We are within our guidelines in development, significantly within our guidelines, sir.
Thank you.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Are there any more questions? Thank you so much, Dr. Stratus. Thank you.
Thank you, board members.
Does the committee want to make a recommendation to take to the full board, or do you just want to wait till the board? And William's hands back up.
Go ahead, Mrs. Smith.
Actually, Ms. Boatwright brought up something too that I was in terms of the field trips. my question in regards to the field trips were that, so to get the understanding was that there's only a certain time of the year that we are allowing for field trip to be taken. Was that the correct understanding? Was that the correct understanding in that?
Madam Chair, may I?
Dr. Stratus, yes.
Thank you, ma'am. Mr. Smith, the field trips, yes, we have put in and shared with our executive directors to communicate to our schools and school leadership, and I actually stood in front of the principals and shared with them as well, that field trips, with the exception of those that are tied to competitions, and under the definition of competitions, I've included fine and performing arts, robotics, I left out JROTC prior at my description, I do apologize, and athletics. And limited movement even for our school leadership, that they need to be at their schools, focus upon teaching and learning, unless it is something tied significantly to, we have the ABC grant, our Arts Integrated Schools, the state grant, where their conference is tied to a grant. It is in the month of May. I have approved all their travel. Right. Career and technology competitions are allowed to go for the travel. I have DECA going for travel. So those that are tied for competitive purposes, yes, as well as grade levels who are not tied to accountability. There should be a focus amongst us for the outcomes that we are all held responsible for. When it comes down to testing, that's not only state's testing, that's advanced placement and our international baccalaureate, as well as our Cambridge testing. So yes, schools were told a period from March, April, and May, we want focus on instruction.
Right. But I do understand that. But my thing about it is just I'm just concerned that certain times of the year, like certain people have like different field trips for kids in different schools, and I'm wondering if any of those times may fall differently from those times that you have already ironed out.
Now, I worked with schools that had items, and some schools I actually were able to readdress. They did a phenomenal job at realigning, so that it was minimal lost time of instruction on a few that I've approved that were a prolonged number of days. In all truth, the students haven't lost opportunity. I may have some adults who may not be as happy.
Okay, thank you. Okay. But yeah, that was okay. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
All right. Thank you, Dr. Stratus.
Yes, ma'am.
Anyone else for discussion or question? Okay. As we heard Dr. Quast say, we are responsible as a board to provide a calendar. I recommend that we take the calendar B selection, that Dr. Stratus's team present this to the full board. Ms. Cushenberry?
Yeah, Dr. Watts' hands up.
So since you didn't get a second, now the option would be all three calendars go to the board.
Okay.
Yeah.
Dr. Stratus, I thought I had this, girl.
That's okay.
Okay.
Thank you, ma'am.
I recommend that we take all three recommendations to the board, to the full board.
Okay. Thank you.
No, thank all of you. Thank all of you.
Your next agenda topic is future topics for your next meeting.
Dr. Quast?
I just want to make it clear, since this is a new committee and they're new members, with all due respect to Mr. David Cook, private citizen cannot direct the academic, a committee, a board committee as to what topics to take up. That direction can only come from the board. So I'm just going to say that.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay. Do we have any topics? Recommendations for any topics for our next meeting? Dr. Stratus, do you have anything?
I would bring forward the choice book, if we could arrange that, Madam Chair, and then we could bring that forward to the board. That would be greatly appreciated.
All right. Anyone else?
I'm sorry. Could you repeat that again? I'm sorry. I didn't catch it. Bring forward the choice book? Is that what you said?
Yes, sir. The choice application book.
Oh, thank you. Appreciate you. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Does anyone else have a topic? As of now, we have the choice application book as a future topic for discussion. Yes, Dr. Stratus.
Madam Chair, should a topic arise, I will work through the board office to communicate so we could work at setting the agenda, if that would be sufficient, ma'am.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
The next thing would be setting the next meeting. And I wanted to ask the committee, the past academic committee met on the 4th Wednesday of each month, beginning at 5 o'clock as a standing committee date. Are you all agreed to continue to do that? Does that work for you, Ms. Gordon? Does that work for you, Mr. Nay?
That works for me, Ms. Cushenberry.
Yeah, that's fine with me. I appreciate it. Yeah, that's fine.
And you all can determine if you want it to be a hybrid or if you want it Zoom only.
Okay.
So
I
then
like
that
Zoom.
means 1, 2, 3, 4. That means our next scheduled meeting would be February 22nd at 5 o'clock.
27th?
22nd.
22nd. Okay.
2-2.
2-2. That works for me. If there are no more topics, no more discussions, I move that this meeting be adjourned.
Thank you.
Thank all of you for your participation.
Thank you.
Thank you. Ms.
Bye-bye.
Cushenberry, thank you for setting this up.
Thank you. You all have a good one.